Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Model Kit Review. I don't know how many of you out there are like me and tend to build multiple projects and work on multiple kits at the same time. I'm really not sure if my habit of building multiple kits at the same time is actually more efficient than just focusing on one at a time and finishing one at a time. Because of the inclement weather that we've had this year, I have been able to complete 4 builds already in 2025. Additionally, I have several kits that have already made it through the paint booth, so they are the closest to getting finished. Within the last couple of weeks, I have really made a lot of progress on multiple builds. I thought this video would be a great way to show you guys what I'm working on. I'll go through each of the kits that I've made progress on, and I'll tell you what I've done and my next steps for the build. The first aircraft we'll look at here is Hasegawa's 1/48 scale car door Typhoon. I've gotten this kit through the paint booth, and I've started in on the weathering process this week. Another thing I've been working on this week is painting some of the detail parts that will go on the exterior of the kit. Those include the wheels, the bombs, the exhausts, and the prop. Typhoons are rarely seen in the desert camouflage. They did not serve widely in the North African theater. However, 3 Typhoons were sent to North Africa for trials in a tropical environment, so I'm modeling one of those 3 aircraft. In this photograph, you can see where my weathering is at so far. I have used pastels to highlight panel lines and underlying structural detail, and then I've gone back and I have erased most of that and pulled the weathering back to a more realistic level. Once I finish my weathering with the pastels, I will seal the pastels in by giving the aircraft a gloss clear coat in preparation for decals. The next kit that I've been working on recently is the 1/48 scale Tamiya Do335 Feel, or Arrow. I've recently featured this kit in a review video. Since I featured it there, I have made more progress on the build. I have cleaned up all the seams, I have done the final sanding and prep work on the exterior of the aircraft. I've attached all the clear bits, and I've used an Edouard canopy mask set to mask off all the clear parts in preparation for paint. If you've never used them, these Edouard canopy masking sets are worth their weight in gold. They come pre-cut, and they can save you hours and hours of time in masking the clear parts. I can't recommend these highly enough. The next steps in this build are to mask off the wheel wells and other small openings on the kit in preparation for paint. Next up, we have the Tamiya 1/48 scale Fw190 Fw190 F-8. This is the ground attack version of the Fw190A series. This past week, I have painted and detailed the interior of the kit. What is shown in these 2 photographs was done out of the box. On this build, I used a True Details resin replacement seat. This comes with the molded in seat belts and harnesses and seat cushion. This painted up very nicely, and it really dresses up what you can see through the cockpit transparencies. 2 things I'll note here. The seat sits a little bit high in the cockpit with the way that it mounts with the seat belt harnesses going over the top decking. Additionally, it took a little bit of trimming to get the upper seatbelt harnesses on the top decking to fit underneath the pilot's armored headrest. After installing the interior into the aircraft, I was able to build up the airframe with no problems. I didn't use any putty on this build, although a little bit of dry fitting was necessary to get the wing assembly to fit the fuselage assembly properly. I also painted and detailed the wheel wells. The final bits that I worked on were the landing gear and the prop, and so I have painted those and detailed those, and those are ready to assemble on the finished kit. Next steps on this project will be masking the airframe off for painting. That brings us to the Arii and Otaki J2 M3 jack. I featured this kit in a build review last year. This past week, I spent some time cleaning up the airframe and getting it ready for paint. I scraped all the seams and then I sanded the seams. I was able to achieve a filler-free build on the airframe of this kit, although it took some work dry fitting the parts to ensure good fit all around. I added the remaining bits to the interior of the aircraft, including the radio behind the pilot's seat and the pilot's armored glass. I also finished polishing out the imperfections from the windscreen, and I was able to attach that to the airframe this week. The next steps on this project are masking off the wheel wells and the canopy in preparation for paint. The next kit we'll look at is Trumpeter's 1/48 scale Supermarine Attacker F1. I have made quite a bit of progress on this kit in the last couple of weeks. Previously, I had the airframe assembled. However, this kit really required a lot of sanding and seam work to get it ready for paint. You can see here at the leading edge of the wing where it joins the fuselage, there is a little bit of putty that I used. Additionally, in the tailhook area, this area is actually recessed and I could not clean up the seam in the recessed pocket, so I added a piece of sheet steering inside the tailhook to cover up the visible fuselage seam. Additionally, I cleaned up and assembled the main landing gear for the kit. I also glued the final bits to the airframe, including the cockpit canopy. The next steps for this build will be masking it off and painting it. The final project that I worked on this past week was Airfix's 1/48 scale P40. This version of the kit is actually the Tomahawk 2 that served in British service. I spent some time this week detailing out the small bits, including the landing gear and the wheels and the exhaust and the prop. I also spent some time yesterday detailing out the wheel wells. The wheel wells on the P40 had khaki colored fabric covers, as did the area around the tail wheel. I'm finishing this kit in the desert colors, and the next steps on this build are to add the pastel weathering to it, and then to seal that with a gloss clear coat in preparation for decals. Hopefully, I'll at least get the Hasegawa Typhoon and the Airfix Tomahawk 2 finished up in February. We'll see how that goes. It just depends on a lot of factors. Well, I'd love to hear from you guys. I don't know if anybody else out there has a similar build process to me where they kind of hop from kit to kit. Let me know if you're a multi-build person or a one-at-a-time build person, and feel free to let me know what you've got on the workbench. As always, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, model on.